African time, and in the C-suite today, we host Peter Mehlape, an author, business leader, and podcaster. Mehlape began his career in healthcare as well as nursing. He then moved to the corporate world, where he held a senior leadership role at global medical technology firms like BD, which is Becton Dickinson. He then moved to Medtronic, where he held the role of managing director. He also hosts a podcast called Off the Clock, where he interviews titans of various industries. Mehlape recently launched his latest book, Winning in Africa, which highlights his experiences across 44 African countries. He also outlines 8 strategic moves for companies seeking sustainable growth on the African continent. He joins us now. A very good afternoon to you, Peter. So great to be hosting you this afternoon. Welcome.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
I was just saying before you joined us that you are a man who's mastered the art of the pivot. And what a pivot it is, moving from being a healthcare professional, working as a nurse and as a midwife, and then turning the other page and going into corporate. What led to that transition?
The baseline for this has been obviously driven by my need to make the difference, make the impact, help the people. You know, just about everybody, when you're small, you're not often motivated by money, but by impact, by purpose. And I think it's been like that for me as well. You know, wanting to be a fireman, to make the difference, to help the people. And that helped me through the whole transition from a clinical space in hospital setting to corporate environment in offices.
And one would really think, Peter, that when you're on the ground, as you said, you're working in a clinical space, that's where you're actually able to make a really, tangible difference that you can see, especially as a nurse and a midwife. But I wonder how you reached the conclusion that you did and how you felt that you'd be able to make a greater impact in the corporate sphere.
The drive has been, the recognition of many, many unmet medical needs that are out there. One could, untap, opportunities to increase access to care. Most healthcare, facilities or clinics or hospitals lack medical supplies, lack medical technology that can help many, many people. So it was out of that drive that there's so many medical unmet needs that need solutions that are customized for the African setting.
And I think being on the ground, you were able to experience that firsthand, and nothing beats the frustration of feeling like your hands are tied and then moving to a space where you can actually feel like you do something. I want to focus on your book now. In your book, you speak about winning in Africa. You speak about working in over 40 different countries around the African continent. What are some of the important lessons, some of the most important lessons that you've learned about doing business on the continent?
The more obvious ones are Africa's got many needs. Whether you're in healthcare, in fast-moving consumer goods, in telco, you're going to have to really work on those. To be able to connect with the communities, one needs to be, solving not just the problems or challenges that are related to your product, but many challenges relate to just shortages of supplies, skills, infrastructure, and currency is a challenge. I mean, my intersection with Shamel Jusab, who wrote the foreword of my book was, when we were managing Egypt, and the currency just depreciated from 15 Egyptian pounds to 30 to 50 within a year, and having to find solutions, to make sure that we're able to convert that money into dollars before it depreciates. So it's all about finding solutions, customizing your business model to Africa, and while you're solving all these many needs or societal challenges or problems.
What would you highlight, Peter, as some of the early experiences while you were starting out that shaped your perspective on the continent and also business on the continent?
What was very obvious was, the gap and the need, but the fact that, business in the rest of the continent is very difficult to South Africa. But people are humble. There's a lot of humility to connect. And I realized very early, right then, that I needed to, embed myself into a different way of doing business, connecting with people in the way that makes sense to them, and addressing many problems that are on the ground. That shaped me from the beginning. I'm talking way back in 2003, 2004, my first trip to Lagos.
And which of the businesses took you there?
I started with Becton Dickinson. I was lucky that my first role was, head of business for the diagnostic business across all Africa to increase access to diagnostics, labs, and testing to many diseases across the continent. You know that Africa has been heavily burdened with communicable diseases. One has to work through the setting up of and strengthening laboratories across the continent, but at the same time working with the company to readjust the technologies that we have that are customized for the African continent. Later, in fact, in the same year, when I was made MD of Becton Dickinson, I was able to expand the business from South Africa to Zambia to Kenya to Ghana, looking into Ethiopia, setting as the business was growing. So, which then allowed me to really travel many countries on the continent.
You mentioned, Peter, the importance of being able, and using your own words, being able to connect with people in a way that makes sense to them as something that was really key for you as you were getting through the continent and getting to work with different, people on the continent. But for a startup or perhaps an SME that's wanting to scale across the borders, what would you highlight perhaps as the first strategic moves that they should make and that they should prioritize, drawing from your experience?
Let me just touch on the two favorite moves that I have. One is doing business on the continent. Think about, products, services, and solutions. What is good enough, to solve a problem that you're solving? Don't try to be fancy and make a complicated product. So that has proven to be a big success. Let me give you an example. Medical companies making a portable diagnostic tool that is running on a battery that you can be able to assemble people under a tree and test them. Or other companies have done a sonar that is handheld. A physician can take it and go on a Uber or tuk-tuk and go see the patients, to see more patients and increase access to care. The other move that is also very impactful in Africa, strategic move, it's called making sure that everyone wins when doing business in Africa. And it talks about shared value creation. Normally, when you do business, you're solving a problem. Think about food, it's a nutrition problem. Telco, it's a communication, whether it's through internet or whatever. But when you do that, solving all societal problems, making sure that everybody wins into that. But in some cases, you may be able to have to step in, do a solution in areas that may not be. Shamal Yusuf mentioned during the launch that as a telco company, they had to create a healthcare facilities to end the rise of connecting with the community and be a trusted partner in those communities.
Peter, it's been absolutely awesome chatting with you this afternoon. Thank you for sharing your time, your experience, and your expertise. And I really do look forward to reading your book. I haven't as yet, Winning in Africa, where you talk about the 8 moves to business success on the continent. So looking forward to reading that, and hopefully we'll have another conversation post that where we can actually delve into your suggestions there. But thank you so much for your time and wishing you continued success.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. That's Peter Mehlape. He's author of the book Winning in Africa. He's also a business leader and podcaster. He takes us to exactly 4:51 Central African Time.
From markets to innovation.